everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, hello, I'm Spooky, welcome. So we're finally diving in to the Dan Markel or the Adelson case. Now, if you don't know anything about this case, awesome, we're gonna go step by step through most of the stuff. If you do, this is a little bit of an in-depth look at some of the more complex and heartbreaking parts of it, but what's wild is that as I was researching this, I realized that if I did the whole case, it would be hours upon hours long. And if you're into that thing, totally, I'm totally down to talk about it and figure it out. But what I decided to do was I'm going to chunk it up. So we're going to start with the brief of it, so the summary, what's going on, and everything that led up to the first trial. Now, when the first trial happens, then we'll cover that whole trial and so on and so forth, all the way up until now, which is like appellates and more stuff and a possible arrest coming soon, and it's just a lot. So, if you're all ready, grab a coffee, grab a blanket, and let's dive on in to Dan's life, his bitter custody battle, and the series of events that led to his murder in 2014. Let's get started. Now, Dan, or Daniel Markel, was born on October 9th of 1972 in Montreal, Canada, into a very loving and deeply intellectual Orthodox Jewish family. He was the kind of person who excelled at everything he put his mind to. Now, after graduating from Harvard College, he went on to earn a master's degree from the University of Cambridge and a Juris Doctor from Harvard Law School. Eventually, he became a law professor at Florida State University, where he specialized in criminal law and gained national recognition for his work. More than his professional accolades, though, Dan was a deeply devoted father of two sons, born in 2009 and in 2010. He was committed to his faith, kept kosher, observed the Sabbath, and lived a life deeply rooted in community. Those who knew Dan described him as intensely intellectual, but also kind, principled, and deeply involved in his children's lives. Dan did marry Wendy Adelson in 2006, and she was also an academic with impressive credentials in law and public health. Their marriage seemed promising at first, but over time, differences emerged, especially about where they wanted to live and raise their children. And unfortunately, the couple divorced in 2013, but sadly, their custody battle quickly turned bitter. Following their divorce, Wendy really wanted to relocate with the children from Tallahassee to Miami to be closer to her family, the wealthy and close-knit Adelson clan. Now, Dan did oppose the move and cited Florida's strict family law, which generally prohibits relocating children without both parents' consent, unless, of course, a court determines it's in the kid's best interest. Now, Dan successfully fought off Wendy's efforts to move, and the courts granted him a 50-50 custody split and denied her relocation requests. These created immense friction between Dan and Wendy, but not only that, her mother. Now, Donna Adelson, who reportedly saw Dan as an obstacle to her daughter's happiness, also saw her access to her grandchildren slowly disappear. And to say that she was mad would be a massive understatement. Now, Dan meticulously documented troubling behaviors. He noted Wendy speaking negatively about him to the children, her mother, Donna, attempting to insert herself into the parenting. I'm not even going to get started on the photo of the children dressed in some German World War II outfits, to put it lightly. A court restricted Donna's interactions with the children after all of this. And in private emails to friends, Dan shared how emotionally taxing the custody dispute had become. He wrote that he felt isolated, targeted, and increasingly anxious. He had no idea how real, though, that threat would sadly become. Now, tensions did escalate in early of 2014. The Adelsons were increasingly frustrated that legal avenues had failed to give Wendy full custody or even permission to relocate. There is one unconfirmed assassination attempt, and it occurred around Wendy's birthday in April of 2014. Now, her behavior reportedly turned erratic around this time, and some do believe that this is the tipping point that caused the family to look somewhere else to make the situation more deadly than it already was turning into. Now, the first confirmed murder attempt did come in early June of 2014. According to the testimony of Luis Rivera, him and a fellow hitman, Sigfrido Garcia, drove from Miami to Tallahassee to kill Dan. They tracked him to a daycare, but later aborted the situation when they saw that Dan had his children. Rivera later said that they, quote-unquote, lost Dan and spent several days aimlessly circling Tallahassee before returning to Miami. They also ran into some logistical problems, i.e. the rental company flagged their vehicle for being driven outside its designated area, and this detail also later helped investigators connect some dots. In early July, Garcia and Rivera returned to Tallahassee in a rented silver Toyota Prius, a major piece of evidence later, and they spent days conducting surveillance on Dan. According to phone records, they were in constant contact with Catherine McBanawa, who acted as a go-between for Charlie Adelson, Wendy's brother, and the killers. On the morning of July 18th, 2014, Dan did follow his usual routine. He dropped his sons off at daycare and returned home at around 11 a.m. As he pulled into his garage, a masked Sigfrido Garcia stepped out of the Prius and approached the driver's side. He fired 2 bullets into Dan's head at close range. Now, neighbors heard the gunshots and did rush outside. They found Dan slumped over in his car, but still alive. And he was rushed to the hospital, where he was placed on life support and sadly died the following day. The crime scene showed no signs of robbery, and Dan's wallet, phone, and other valuables were untouched. So, according to them, this was not a random act of violence, it was a planned execution. Over time, investigators began piecing together what happened, using neighborhood surveillance footage, phone records, rental car logs, and later wiretaps. The silver Prius seen fleeing the neighborhood was eventually linked to the Miami-based killers. Through cell phone pings and rental records, police traced the vehicle's movements and confirmed that Garcia and Rivera were in Tallahassee during that murder. Now, Rivera, who was a known gang member, eventually agreed to cooperate in exchange for a plea deal. According to Rivera, Charlie Adelson had orchestrated the hit. He used Catherine McBanawa, his ex-girlfriend or girlfriend, depending on what sources you talk to, and Garcia's ex-partner to coordinate the operation. Now, Rivera testified that the hit was a solution to this family's ongoing custody frustrations. Financial records did reveal that large cash payments from Charlie Adelson to McBanawa, who then funneled the money to Garcia and Rivera. These payments were disguised as checks for dental office work, but ironically, no such work existed. Now, in May of 2016, Luis Rivera was arrested and quickly turned into a state's witness. In October of 2016, Sigfrido Garcia and Catherine McBanawa were arrested, and Rivera's testimony was massively crucial. He laid out the entire murder for hire conspiracy in chilling, excruciating detail. And according to him, Donald Adelson was also involved in pressuring Charlie to, quote-unquote, fix the problem. Meanwhile, the FBI launched a undercover operation using a confidential informant. They caught Donald Adelson on tape discussing ways to divert attention from the family and even mentioned framing others. Now, Charlie was also recorded making very suspicious statements. The state's case was pretty straightforward. Dan Markel was killed as part of a murder for hire conspiracy orchestrated by the members of the Adelson family. The motive was the custody dispute. The killers were paid approximately $100,000, with McBanawa acting as the link between the family and the hitman. Prosecutors believed that Adelson wanted Dan out of the picture so his sister Wendy could gain full custody and relocate to South Florida. Now, Donald Adelson's phone records and wiretap transcriptions revealed intense anger and a desire for revenge against Dan. Catherine McBanawa received payments after the murder, and her financial records showed large, unexplained deposits. Charlie Adelson, meanwhile, showed increased paranoia and withdrew large sums of money. And the prosecution introduced this as circumstantial evidence of guilt. Leading up to the first trial, the defense team filed multiple motions to suppress evidence. They challenged the admissibility of wiretaps, questioned Rivera's credibility, and tried to exclude key testimony. However, the state had a strong circumstantial case supported by phone records, financial trails, and Rivera's eyewitness testimony. Media coverage also exploded as the public became more aware of the layers of betrayal, manipulation, and violence embedded into this case. And despite the strong evidence, Wendy Adelson was never charged. She received limited immunity to testify, as she consistently denied knowing anything about the murder plot. Whether she knew or was simply insulated from the plot remains a massive subject of public debate. And the debate still goes on today after some people believe to be the final trial to go forward, but we don't know. The main prosecutor has not let anything slip, and, well, people think what they want to think. Now, before the first trial ever began, the tragedy of Dan Markel's murder had already left a lasting impact. He was a brilliant scholar, a loving father, and a deeply principled man. His death was not just a personal loss, but a loss to the legal community and society at large. His parents, Ruth and Phil Markel, continue to advocate for justice. They have worked to pass laws supporting grandparent visitation rights and honoring their son's legacy. Dan Markel's life and the fight for accountability in his death remains one of the more compelling true crime stories of our time. In the next video, we're going to follow the twists and turns of the first trial in the courtroom and the battle of the Adelsons and Markels as it begins. Now, mind you, this is literally just a snippet of what happened. This does not get into any of the other details, the wiretapping or anything of that nature. It's just a small, tiny little chunk before we get into everything else. Each trial that I cover will be more in depth, what goes on, the testimony, everything, because it's just insane. We might show clips, we might not, I'll have to see. But I watched Donna's case and I immediately wanted to talk about this. It is a insane case, and I can only imagine with her now being convicted that there might be another one coming down the pipelines. Now again, the prosecution team has not let anything slip, and you know the internet will internet about whether Wendy will be actually charged or not. But time will only tell, and it is only at the time of recording this, April of 2026. And from what I can tell, it was years between each charge and each conviction. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for being here. I do appreciate you watching this. If you would like to be a member, please do. These are all my lovely members right now and everything they do to support me, as well as my Patreon members. I am deeply, deeply thankful. And they mean the absolute world to me. And you get everything early. So if you want some early stuff and you want to enjoy all of that, please check out all those things down below. I will leave links to my research and everything down below as always. Subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know what else to say. It's a little bit of shorter-ish, I guess, video. I just really wanted to get the summary out. It will be chunks of video afterwards. I might do some little ones in between, but I want to keep everything kind of succinct as it is. So let me know what you think of this case down below and everything in between. I love y'all so very much, and I will see you all in the next one. Stay spooky, my friends.